you go. Done. Thank you, Lisa. And I've just changed the view to the speaker view only. So that's awesome. So
thanks, Lauren, because I may have to jump off. I'm sorry, but Lisa, it's recorded. That's good.
Brilliant. So if everyone would like to put themselves on mute, I will try and see if I can do that and make sure that happens from this end as well, if I can figure that out. But in the meantime, we're going to dig in straight away because it's now 6:10, and we're going to get into what it takes to be a well-paid speaker and to pivot from a free speaker or someone who's doing a few gigs and you really want to do more. So the first question I have for Michael and Marty is around that whole idea. Look, if you want to be paid to speak or you want to be paid more to speak and to create that steady income, how do you pivot? How do you go from just being, I'm out there as a speaker, or I'm an industry speaker, or I'm speaking for free? How do you do that? How do you switch and pivot?
I think the first thing to think about is that there's kind of two different types of, I see in the marketplace anyway, my view is as an agent and as a booker, and that I see every single day when I'm talking to clients who are booking speakers, that there's kind of two types of speaker out there in the industry. And so, you know, everybody that's on LinkedIn, the hundreds of thousands of speakers that's on LinkedIn, and believe me, there are hundreds of thousands of you, then how do you, you know, most of those speakers are speaking on stages where it might not be the main stage, it might be the breakout room, it might be a workshop, it might be a second kind of room. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, you know.
Or it might even be in their professional role, they might still be working for a big corporate and they're asked to speak as part of their job, you know, 10, 12 times a year. So they call themselves a speaker on LinkedIn.
The key to it is that the conference organizer will be inviting you to speak because of your area of expertise. And so it's normally a preordained topic that they've asked you to come along and speak on. Can you speak on customer service after COVID, for example, if you're a customer service specialist? And so you've been invited to do that. Now, quite often what that means is that you're going to be in the middle of the day. Normally, you're not normally going to be opening the event. You're not normally going to be closing the event. You're typically going to be in the middle of the day. You're usually going to be paid quite a low fee, if you're paid any fee at all. A lot of the time that you're offered expenses and the good old word exposure, because you know you can take that to the bank, can't you? You know, oh well, we've got a brilliant audience, and you know people are falling over themselves to speak on our stage, and you know it's all that sort of thing. And you always think, well, how am I going to get out of that? How do I get onto that main stage? Because I know for certain that they're paying the speaker that's on the keynote stage. And so the keynote is the second type of speaker. So you've got your industry speaker who's doing those types of slots.
For those in the US, they sometimes call them a conference speaker in the US.
And then you've got your keynoter. So your keynote, a pure keynote, as you might have heard me say before, a pure keynote is someone who strikes the chord for the rest of the conference. It's the opening keynote speaker. And so, but now we say anything, you know, even if you're in an industry slot, the conference organizer might sometimes say, oh, we're looking for a keynote. Well, they're not really looking for a keynote. The keynote is at the start, and I would argue at the end, those anchor slots, I call them, those are your really solid keynotes. Sometimes you would also book a keynote speaker as an event organizer for the after dinner slot, or the after lunch slot rather. So you've got those kind of those meal slots, either in the middle of the day, you know, or after your gala dinner.
And so it's really important to understand that because those slots are crucial, like the opening slot and the closing spot, or the after dinner spot, something like that, that they're the ones where you get paid the proper keynote speaking fees. Yeah,
people are really prepared to pay the money for those slots. And when you're talking about virtual events, it's exactly the same thing. And so if you're going to be, you know, the title speaker, the opening speaker, the main speaker of the event, and they might have, you know, some other experts, internal industry experts and so on, throughout the rest of it, it's the same thing. And I actually find that a lot of my clients that I work with, they have gotten to the point where people are completely zoomed out. And so they need some really good speakers, some really.
Oh, is it just me or is it everybody else? The internet's just decided to freeze.
It's for me too.
Lorenza, are you on the internet? My internet's just frozen. Is it frozen for you, Graham?
Yeah.
What the hell's going on? See, it's recording.
expert in the sense of teaching people how to have a better strategy on how to change their business. No, what Marty does is he helps these horrible things called human beings accept the fact that they have to change and implement the strategy that they've paid KPMG $200,000 to put together for them.
So, for example, year before last, I was hired by a mortgage broker here in Australia, like a chain of mortgage brokers, a franchise of mortgage brokers here in Australia, and they had a new CEO.
that industry talk, but on a keynote stage, and it just was jarring. It just, you know, the coming in and out of stories and so on, just, it was really, really difficult. And essentially what she had done is she'd continued to try and elevate her position. And so when you're invited to come as a speaker in an industry slot, remember I said you're invited because of your area of expertise. So you're picked because of you. It is you that they want, right? It's 100% you that they want. And they've picked you because of your area of expertise and because of your prowess in the industry. Now, as a keynote, you need to come up with what your signature thing is. You need to come up and think about it more as a product. Remember, as we said earlier, you know, you want to think about it, not positioning yourself rather, but coming up with something that the market wants. And so, you know, we talk about this being put in the process, not the person on the pedestal. Remember how I was saying earlier that, you know, you've got hundreds of thousands of speakers that are all on LinkedIn, you know, saying, pick me, pick me, pick me. Well, how do you ever rise out of that? How do you ever put your hand up and say, well, I'm better than all those other speakers? Well, you can't, because they're all doing that too. You know, you go on their websites and they're incredibly passionate, just as passionate as you are being a leadership speaker. You know, you wouldn't believe it, would you? Right?
For those who know the movie, you know, we're talking about it's being like that final scene in Life of Brian, like, I'm Brian, I'm Brian, I'm Brian, and so is my wife. You're like, I'm special. No, I'm special. I've got a great story, but I've got a great story. I'm passionate. I'm passionate. Yeah. You know, if you make it all about yourself, then it becomes a race to the top of Instagram and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
even
then, they're like, you know, it puts you into a different type of speaker if you're just trying to be like this, you know, B-grade Instagram celebrity. And make like, it's the thing we're talking about is giving the conference organizer, the people who are booking you, are looking to pay, you know, 10 grand a speech and more. What value do you bring to the event, and what value do you bring to my business?
So you really need to think about, of all of the stuff that you've got, imagine instead of you having a speaker business or a coaching business or a training business that you currently have, imagine you're a jeweler instead, right? And a jeweler sells lots of stuff, don't they? They sell loads and loads of stuff. They sell diamond rings, they sell wedding bands, they sell silver chains, they sell Timex watches, they sell Rolex watches, lots and lots of different stuff. And if you were a jeweler, your keynote would effectively be your shop front window. Yeah, your keynote for anybody that's got a business like that is where you put your sexiest, most expensive stuff, because in terms of time for money, you'll get paid more for the time that you spend on a keynote stage than doing almost everything else that you do in your business. And so you've got to bring your best stuff. You've got to bring your A game. So just like a jeweler puts the shiny stuff in the front window, they put their Rolex watches, they put their biggest diamonds, don't they? You know, they don't put the silver, like you might be after a silver chain, right?
They don't put Parker pens.
Nah, you don't. You want
window.
Your sexiest stuff in the shop front window. So it's the stuff that the market finds aspirational, the stuff that they want to put on their stage. What have you got that's aspirational? What have you got critically out of all of your content that you think people really need to know right now, that's going to make their lives better, their businesses better, their teamwork better, their leadership better, their marketing better, their whatever your thing is? If you can only tell 5 stories on stage with 5 key points, which I would argue is far too many anyway. If these are key points, I mean, anchor, key, proper takeaways, you really want no more than 3, in my view, in any one keynote talk, because people can't take away more than that. And in fact, you're doing your job if they really genuinely take away one thing. So what are those things? What are those absolutely rock solid things that you think, yeah, this is the stuff that people really need to hear right now? And that's the stuff you put in your shop front window, and that's the stuff that you put in your keynote talk. And you create out of it your signature thing, your product.
So does everybody get that? Like, let's just stop for a second. If Richard Branson said, look, you've got 15 minutes with my people, what's in 12 words or less?
Let's make it interesting. Let's say I ring you and I say, Richard Branson's been in touch and he's got $1 million for a speaker that's got to share 5 things with my new business that I've set up.
Yeah, but what's the one thing you think would really hook him in? What's the one penny drop moment? What's the one key idea, key concept, 12 words or less that a 12-year-old could understand? That's this 12 and 12 format that we talk about so that no one misunderstands you. Pop that in the chat now. What's
Just give us anything you've got, anything you think of straight away that you think, yes, that 100%, that would have to be in my keynote.
And hello, Sarah Moore's daughter.
And we'll do some background music as we wait.
That's such a good question. I'm sorry, I was prepared for a while. My internet decided to go and shit itself, so I'm back. There were some choice words being used in our household for a short time there. Great, this is such an important part, guys. I have put in the chat box some homework for you to do, I believe. But Michael, you were saying one of the key illustrations of this, one of the stories you said, was when somebody rings you as a speaker booker and says, I want you to book me for these gigs and so on. And you say to them, okay, what do you talk about? What happens when you ask somebody that question?
So 9 times out of 10, when I say to a speaker, what do you speak on? What do you talk about? 5, sometimes 10 minutes later, they're still talking. They're still going. They can't succinctly say, I'm a speaker on this to these people with these value points and these takeaways. And that's what I want to know. Because if you can't do that, right, I always say you need to make yourself easy to sell, right? You've got to make yourself easy to sell, because believe me, there are hundreds of thousands of events happening, virtual and in-person events, every single day across the world, right? There is huge opportunity out there. So you don't ever think, I mean, what would be a really good result for any of you guys? Getting 10 keynote talks, 20, 50 keynote talks a year at 10 grand. Would that do it for most of you? That's not going to be bad. It's a $500,000 business, right? Out of just speaking. And then you've still got all the rest of your stuff and leverage and higher fees because you're the person that's on the keynote stage and all of that sort of thing. 50, there are hundreds of thousands every day. And so you need the tiniest crumb off the edge of the table. On the other side, I've got conference organizers that ring me and go, oh, Michael, I've been picked. They've got a knot in the pit of their stomach because they're the one that's got to choose the keynote speaker for the stage. And first of all, it's bloody hard. Secondly, they've got to know that they've got the expert that has to be on their stage, because if not, their neck is on the line. And so they have to know for certain that you're the person for them. How do you do that? Be really specific in your niche with your product so you're really clear and it's easy for them to buy you. If you try and be all things to all people, you're just going to be washed over like the rest of the beige soup of the 400,000 keynote speakers that's on LinkedIn.
So there's some really good one-liners that are coming through in the chat. If you want to have a look at those, Michael.
Yeah, let's have a look. This is
a great
Houseman.
It's going to hurt your brains. It certainly hurt our brains when we've been working with Michael and Marty to niche this down, but it's a start. And remember, you're not going to actually get this right tonight, but it's a really interesting way of getting your brain thinking about how to position yourself as a keynote speaker.
Empathy as a superpower. Leanne, I like that one. Where's Leanne? Wave, Leanne, where are you? Oh, I can't. Yeah. Hey, I like that one. That's a good. We call them zingers. So that's a good zinger. Empathy is a superpower. Empathy, just as an aside, is a huge commercial subject right now as well. So if empathy is your lane, if that's your thing, particularly in leadership, communication, teamwork, corporates and organizations are paying a lot of money for speakers on that stuff right now. Would you agree, Leanne?
I hope so, But yes.
No, more than ever, people have realized that, through COVID, through everything, it's been people, you've got to treat people as humans to get your best out of them. People really understand that now. Whereas beforehand, it was a bit
of a nice to have,
a bit fluffy, empathy
That's
with well-being and stuff,
It's largely misunderstood as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Where we got Kim Cousins, selling is not a dirty word. Oh, well, you won't mind when we do the hard sell at the end of this then, will you? No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do any sell. Don't worry about it.
Your credit card is safe on this webinar.
But it's right. Selling is not a dirty word. I actually went to a talk recently where someone was in a room with a bunch of predominantly male salespeople that were in their, I would say the average age in that room was about 55 probably. And she stood and said, everybody needs to be salespeople. We've got to realize that. And I thought, oh my God, like they learned that when they were 12. So yes, but selling not being a dirty word. Selling, that I would say that came as perfect content for selling for non-sales people. That would be sort of ideal. Yeah, cool, awesome stuff. Or people that think they're not salespeople, which is their first bloody mistake, Kim, is it not?
Particularly business owners.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but this
and professionals.
It's interesting that you bring this up though, Kim, because it's one of the things that really strikes me with speakers as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, speakers think they don't have to be salespeople.
But one of the biggest things you have to do is be a salesperson. People quite often, just think that, oh, well, I'll be amazing and every one of these gigs.
That's why most people want to get in with people like Michael. I just want someone to do all that nasty sales stuff for me, like nasty persuasion stuff for me. But you have to be, boots and all be a part of it, or it just never works.
Yeah, absolutely. What we got here? So we got Donald. I inspire people to seek their highest selves. Oh, that's intriguing. It's intriguing. How to be seen, heard, and remembered for the right reasons, like that, Derek. Creativity, live life out of the box, like that, Harish. Lovely stuff. Clearly you're embodying that with that magnificent beard and that wonderful shirt of yours. Awesome stuff. I put live video since I'm not sure, 5 years old, understand live streaming. Anita, you're going to have to explain that. I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, she put above. Anita talked about that she helps you use video, getting customers through live video.
Yes. Yeah. Very good.
Okay. Alrighty.
Ooh, swap burning out for a fire within.
Nice.
Like
nice.
it, Leanne. Again, very good. Awesome stuff. So.
Nice. So you mentioned there, Michael, that empathy is one of the hot topics at the moment. And I know Elvin Turner sent a couple of questions in before we went live with the webinar tonight. And one of those questions was, what are the hottest topics that are out there that corporate clients and people are wanting speakers for?
So you can leave the room for a minute, mate, while I talk about change and resilience. Change and resilience obviously has been quite significant topic since
Michael's just saying, because that's my lane. I talk about resilience through times of change is sort of how I describe what I talk about. And
there's been a shift in that though. I think some people have been resilienced out. So they've had a lot of resilience people, a lot of resilience training, and
that how to bunker down and survive this bad time. Most businesses are through that now, and they're like, how do we get back to business? Like, how do we get moving again? How do we get our people to get moving again?
And it's funny because my wife's a psychologist, and she says that although a lot of people in conferencing and business think about resilience as kind of battening down the hatches of putting on the full metal jacket, the true form of resilience from a psychological point of view is actually your ability to bounce back after bad times. And so, and that's what people are looking for. How do we get our people to bounce out? We know they're burnt out. We know that we put pressure on them. We know that they've still got worries. We know that we've got uncertainty, but we can't stagnate for another year. Otherwise, none of us are going to have a job. And so what can we do to get our people through that next stage? Looking forward to the challenge and actually being creative. Another one is entrepreneurialism. So you would think this would be a weird one, particularly for like the corporate market, for example. But if you imagine that you've got a lot of indecision, in business right now. I'm sure a lot of you people that are working, with any C-suiters, you'd be experiencing this. I'm working with a lot of boards, a lot of C-suites, a lot of teams where the issue that they've got is that because the macro environment is changing so much, and particularly because the decisions from corporate coming down to them are changing so much, that they have to they feel like they're not in control, and they can't really lead the organization. They don't know what to tell people. And so what's happening is that they want their people to be more, take up a few more risks, obviously within the constraints of corporate policies, but to just try and work things out for themselves and be on the fly, and not always be asking up what do they do next.
I'm doing a gig on Thursday for one of the big 4 banks here in Australia, and they were saying that their people, like the playbook that they had 18 months ago just doesn't work anymore because the things are so different. And so they want people to not sit there and go, okay, playbook doesn't work, what should I do? And then wait for things to come down. Start getting forward and start making some decisions and take some initiative. And as Michael said, the word you say they keep using is to be more entrepreneurial in their thinking.
Yeah, that brings us on to the next thing, which is leadership. Leadership is a really, really strong one at the moment. Leadership communication, because I think just as we've gone through unprecedented times, leadership's been really challenged. When people are when times are good, people are generally motivated. And so when people are generally motivated, they're easier to manage. And a lot of leaders haven't been through really any difficult times. The global financial crisis happened a long time ago now. And there's a lot of people that have become leaders since then. So they've never had to deal with leading people through difficult times. And now, not only are we in the worst difficult period in history, but also we're all doing it all remotely. How the hell do we lead people through this and remotely? And they've just gone. And so I actually think I'm talking about there being a leadership pandemic as well as a coronavirus pandemic right now, because there is a lot of lack of skill in the leadership. So when I talked to you there earlier about what leaders are doing, they haven't got control. The normal human default that I'm finding with a lot of clients that I'm working with is that they start micromanaging, because instead of looking at strategy and governance, which they've got no control over anymore, they're micromanaging. And so when you micromanage your people that's underneath you, what does that make them feel? Well, they then feel that they're demotivated and they're not trusted anymore. And there was one massive organization that is the biggest leader in their field. And if I told you the organization, you would know them. Everybody in this room, everyone on the planet probably knows this brand. Their board went through a letter that the commercial director wrote 6 times to change individual words in it. This is a letter that he sends out to his corporate partners every quarter. And they asked to see the letter and they asked him to change it 6 times. How do you think that made him feel? And then how do you think that makes him feel and how he acts with his people that are in his team as well? Really, really demotivational. But it's just a natural shift because we're not leading anymore, we're managing. And that gets us in a difficult sort of scenario. So leadership, I would say, communication, definitely, resilience still, anything to do with entrepreneurialism, but genuinely, anything that's a business skill that people need to get them out of the shit right now. If you've got value in that, people need it.
And that's what we were saying before at the start about when the pandemic started, loads of speakers just saying, I've just cut my fees because it's only virtual now. But the things that people needed right then and there, they needed them 5 times as much as they did 6 months earlier. But everyone was, running around saying, oh, no, I'll just cut my fees. I'll cut my fees. And it was so counterproductive.
Mm.
So on that, Marty, and we've got a lot of people put some amazing things into the chat now around, that short phrase of what is it that you speak about? What are you the expert? What would you be on stage talking about? I guess the homework as a speaker is to now go, okay, how do I match that up with what's needed out there? And how do I find those 3 to 5 stories? Would that be your next step, Marty, as a speaker?
Yeah, definitely to have a think about, just what we were talking about before. Just say, for example, go through the mental exercise. If Richard Branson came and had a chat to you and said, look, you got 15 minutes with my people. Like, what are the 3 key lessons that you would impart to his people that would help them right now from your kit bag, from that, a lot of people on this are trainers, consultants, that sort of thing. What are the 3 key lessons that you would impart to Richard Branson's people, or anyone in the corporate space right now? and start talking about them more.
And doesn't necessarily have to be corporate, it could be business, you know, it could be associations.
Yeah, I suppose I use the word corporate because that's my key client, but yeah, people who pay speakers.
Yeah, so who is booking speakers? It leads beautifully into that question.
So really what I would do is I would throw that back to who is it that can really benefit from the value that you've worked out that you've got, right? That's what you need. You need to be thinking about who this client avatar is, who this ideal person is that you want to sell your speaking to. And then from there, you can work out who's buying keynotes. Now, as Marty said, and as everybody knows, corporates are always known as like the key, oh yes, I want to be a corporate keynote speaker, and that's fine. But the thing about corporate, from my point of view, is they're not like, yes, I love corporates. They pay well. They're a good, you know, they've got lots of money. They've got lots of people. And so therefore they pay a lot for keynote speakers. So they're definitely a good client. However, when you're talking about sustainability of a speaking business, and when I, as a speaking agent, when I sell a speaker, that's not my job done. That's only my job started. What I really want to know is, how am I going to leverage this to get more speaking gigs or consultancy work or whatever for the speaker once they've done this gig, or sometimes even before they've even done the gig? How can I upsell before we go anywhere with this? And it's harder to do that with a corporate than just about any other client, because think about it. If this is their all company conference that you're speaking at and you're the headline speaker, then you're speaking to everyone in the business already. And so unless they refer you outside their organization or to a different division or a different area, you know, they're very unlikely to have you back the next year. They might have you back 3 years time, but you know, that's it. You've done that gig, and unless you work hard to get referrals, which obviously you can, and Kim, I'm sure you've got some techniques on how you don't leave money on the table with things like that to make sure that you're leveraging your referrals and your recommendations. But it's not an automatic referral or recommendation. Now, if you speak for a different organization, like for example, an association, well, now we've got a different scenario. So say, for example, your ideal target client that you speak to would be in HR. Say you talk on teamwork, yeah? If you speak at a HR conference that's full of HR directors and managers, and there's 500 of them in the room that all work for corporate organizations, well, guess what? There's 500 potential rebookings right in that room. And so for me, associations, particularly because associations, they have membership and they charge for their events. And so they also have budget for their conferences, but you've got a much higher opportunity of being rebooked by them. And so therefore you're going to have a much more sustainable business. That's why associations are my top #1 client in the agency. Not least because, of course, even if they don't want the same speaker, I can book lots of other speakers with them too, of course. So I have that added advantage.
So Elvin's just asked a really good question as well. What are the specific job titles? If you're going to put, and it's a great question, Elvin, because we do suggest, obviously, you put a database together, would be the next bit of homework, wouldn't it? Now, once you've figured out who your ideal audience is, go out and find them and put a database together. But what are the job titles you'd be looking for, Michael, to put on that database?
Could we just pause there for a second? When you say put a database together, that's one of the things I know, you know, we talk about in our training, Lauren, with you, is that you don't think about it as a database, because that's a bit of a like shotgun, you know, just fire far and wide. We talk about it as having a wish list of clients rather than having a database, rather than having like this big, broad, just anyone with the title of event coordinator. Yeah, I'll link in with them. I'll start sending them the stuff. Like, that's why we talk about this whole idea of, you know, if Richard Branson says to you, what are the 3 key points that you would talk about? How do you wrap those up into an overarching idea? And then, as Michael just said, then who really needs your stuff in the marketplace now? Then start narrowing it down rather than just like spread myself far and wide on Instagram and that sort of thing and get myself everywhere. Get a wish list of clients. Like you were saying, like, about how many clients you had at your business back in the UK.
Yeah. And I mean, I had a multi-million-pound turnover agency back in the UK, and that survived completely on less than 400 clients. So you don't need a lot of clients at all in order to satisfy what you want to do as a keynote speaker. And like Marty said there, with the shotgun, rather than a shotgun, you've got to have the sniper rifle. It really is about narrowing that right down. And I will answer the question about who in corporates in a sec, but you got to think about it in a way that lots of people will spend a lot of money on trying to make themselves more attractive as a keynote speaker by putting swanky websites together, show reels, making their LinkedIn the best that they possibly can do. And then the gigs will flow in. You know, that's how it works. Yeah. Well, no, that's not how it works. You know, you need to go and find the work. You know, Kim, I'm sure, again, I'm drawing back to Kim here. Sorry, Kim. You know, but again, if you sit back, that's not how business works. You don't just, it's a bit like, you know, going and putting your best dress on, going and getting your hair done, your nails done, putting your makeup on, you know, and sitting on the couch and waiting for someone to come and knock on the door and offer you a date. Yeah. Like, it's never worked for Marty. So it's, you know, it's not going to work for you guys as a
best dressed too.
It's best dressed. You should have shaved your legs, mate. That's what it was. But honestly, it is that kind of, you know, you've got to do the reaching out. You've got to show your value. You've got to build that trust. And sometimes that pipeline can take a long time. But when you get there, think about it. It can be a very lucrative gig. And once you've got that gig, if you're going to get 3 and 4 and 5 rebookings in that room, that can be, I've traced back with some speakers, some gigs, and it's been multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds and multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on where I booked them from, that we've had from one single client, because they've been rebooked from the room and rebooked from the room and rebooked out again. And so you never know when you're going to catch that absolute whale of a client that ends up really just mushrooming, you know, in terms of your sustainability as a
the added advantage to getting really clear on who your target clients should be, like, you know, what sectors really need what you've got, what type of clients, like, you know, associations or franchisors or, you know, big corporates like I speak to, or the education sector, or those, like, getting really clear means everything else about your business gets really clear as well. You don't have to, you know, because it sounds like, you know, we're saying, oh, it's so much work reaching out to all these people. You're not reaching out to all these people. You're only reaching out to people that are the exact fit for your key target market.
It actually makes that conversation, like, I don't feel like I sell at all. I actually have really nice conversations with people who genuinely want to create amazing events for amazing people that I can provide them with to help them provide that. And I just do that matchmaking service and take my 25%, but I just do that matchmaking service and make sure that they get the person that's going to absolutely knock it out of the park. And that's what I can do that they can't get on their own. I can guarantee the fee of that speaker before they get on the stage, 100%, no problem. And so when and I know a lot of people will be sat there thinking, well, yeah, that's fair enough, but I speak for associations that give me no money, and ask me, well, there are different types of clients in the marketplace. First of all, we've talked about the different types of talks. So in the past, it might have been that you've been pigeonholed as being one of those industry speakers and not seen as being a keynoter. So you really got to up that game and think about that as market yourself as a keynote and not as that industry slot.
And because, like, if someone's seen you on an association stage, they'll ask the organizer, how much did you pay that guy? And they'll say, oh no, just accommodation and flights. And they go, okay, that's what I'll offer him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really, really hard to climb out of that. But think about it like this. If you're thinking about how do you target and how do you get the right clients, think about it as the car market. Right? The vast majority of the car market out there is your common or garden family general car. Yeah, it's your Kias, your Fords, your Nissans, your Toyotas. It's all of those, it's just cars, right? And that's 80% of the market, maybe. Yeah, throwing those figures off the top of my head because I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing from what I see day to day, it's about 8% of the market, right? So that's your baseline. That's the vast majority of the car market. On top of that, you've then got the proper performance cars, you know, those cars that'll do the job and make you look really good. Yeah. So you've got your Audis, your BMWs, you know, those are Jeep. I wouldn't even consider, just leave them outside somewhere else. Sorry for your Jeep drivers and Volvo drivers as well. They've bumped in with them. But your Audis, your BMWs, those sorts of cars, they're in that middle tier where you're prepared to pay more for it. And then at the top, you've got your Ferraris,
Teslas, and your
Teslas would be in that middle band. I think Teslas would be in that middle band.
220 grand.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would. They're good, decent cars, but they're not massive aspirational cars, right?
They're not McLarens.
No. And so when you think about that as the analogy of that as the speaking industry. So the bottom there, you've got the 400,000 speakers who all do your industry slots, who will do a decent job. They'll get you from A to B. Yeah, they'll give you the content that you need. They'll fill your conference slot. They're not going to blow you away though, right? You're not going to, it doesn't matter how much you soup them up. They're not going to blow you away, these speakers, okay? Because it doesn't matter how good your content is, you're delivering a workshop, right? That's what you're doing. All right. So it's a workshop. Take it to the next level though. That's your keynoters, your Audis, your BMWs. Those are the speakers that we want on our keynote stage. We know that it's not massively flashy. You're not talking Simon Sinek and Barack Obama and those sorts of speakers that are right up, your celebs and all of that are in the top tier. But you've got good, solid speakers that are going to impress people. People are going to come and see. Now think about it like this: if you want to buy an Audi, do you go into a garage that sells Fords and Nissans and all that sort of stuff? Well, no, you don't. You go to the Audi garage. And similarly, if you know you haven't got Audi money, you don't even go in there, right? And so that means, think about it as a client. If you're a client and I come across your website,
and the good thing about it is if you're a keynote speaker and you're an Audi and like people wearing shorts and Ugg boots don't even come into the showroom, like they don't even reach out to you. Like they self-select out when they see your promotional materials and your website.
If I'm as a booker, I'm looking and I can see, ask myself, does that look like the website of a 10,000 speaker? And I say, yes, it does. I'm not picking up the phone to inquire unless I've got 10 grand. So that the vast majority of the inquiries that you're going to get through are going to have the budget, which is always the biggest problem that you're going to ever encompass when you get to selling your speaking, because people don't, particularly you guys, don't like asking for the money. You don't like selling. And so you don't want to say how much you are because you're afraid that, what if I'm $2,000 too much and they don't book me? And, then that like a lot of that is taken away, because you've positioned yourself for the marketplace that's willing to buy you, who's got the money to pay for the value you've got to give, and they're used to paying it as well. And think about it like this: you will be missed out on opportunities for being too cheap as much as you will for being too expensive. Please, please don't sell yourself short. If you genuinely hand on heart have got great value to give on a stage, you should be charging for it. I was chatting to
someone on Facebook the other day. He came through to for those who don't know, the Speaker Green Room is our Facebook group. And he was sort of coming in and he said, look, I just know the market doesn't tolerate any more than this. I charge £2,000 for my keynotes. And it's just like, dude, like I wanted to try and help him and everything, but it's like, don't even try and tell me that there's anything more than that, because I just know there isn't. And he'd done his John Maxwell training and all that sort of thing, and it just, he will be missing out on so much work because it's got on his website that he's £2,000 for a keynote.
I've had clients before where they've said, well, they can't be any good, if they're only that. If they're only $5,000, if they're only 10 grand, if they're used to paying 20 grand for a speaker and they've looked at all your stuff, they've looked at your videos, they've looked at your website and thinking, oh yeah, you're the speaker for us. And then they hear the fee and they're like, can't risk it. Mustn't be good enough.
And it's like, if you walk into like an Audi showroom and all the other cars are $80,000. So we got this one, it's 35. You go, what's wrong with
hail
it?
damage?
What's
hail
wrong,
damage.
What's wrong with it? There's a bit of a crash. It's like, you do, don't you? You go, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
Yeah, you get, that's when you get it. What's the trick? You get a duster, don't you? And you put a strong magnet on it and you rub it over the car to make sure that it hasn't been filled in where all the dents are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really awesome questions. Thanks, guys, coming into the chat. Hamish has asked, how much chance would you get to be booked if you're a new keynote speaker?
Oh, it's a big question with respect to because the stuff that we teach in our thing is like, if you're a new keynote speaker who has very solidly worked out the commercial value, the lessons they have to give in the marketplace, worked out how to present those things in a way that the market wants to receive them and can express those, and the marketing materials look like the marketing materials of a $10,000 speaker, then you shouldn't have any problem asking for, like you've got a decent one sheet, a decent show reel, a website that looks like the website of a $10,000 speaker, then you shouldn't have any problem. But if you don't have those things and you're just trying to say, I've got really great lived experience and I've got a really great story to tell, then that's all about you. That's not about the value that you bring to the business. So it's sort of like, it's not about the fact that you're new. Quite often, if you've got your stuff together and they've had the same old names for 17 years, and they've been having the same conference for 17 years, in fact, they've got someone new who's got a great video, a great one sheet, and the website really presents the value that they have to give to the marketplace well, then there's no reason why they wouldn't book you at all.
Yeah. There's also no excuse and no, there's nothing that's going to replace you knocking it out of the park when you get on the stage. So you have to know that you can present as well. So, but as long nobody should be stepping into keynote speaking if you don't feel confident and comfortable on stage.
Yeah. So if we ask yourself, like, if Michael rang you and said, look, I saw you on the call last night, someone's pulled out, I've got a gig in whatever city you're in on Friday. It's a 50-minute keynote in person in front of 3,000 people, unbelievable opportunity. Are you ready? If you can just go, hell yeah, love to, absolutely. Then then you're ready to be a keynote speaker.
Brilliant. And Leanne has asked, is it best to reach out to those ideal audiences with a phone call, an email, or a personal LinkedIn message?
I'm 100% for phone call. There's a full prescription that I give. There's a full technique that I use on how to start prospecting, because remember, before they're prospects, I consider them suspects. Just because you've got a lead, that's not a prospect. You've got to qualify that lead before it becomes a suspect. So you need to know lots and lots of different things about that person and their event before you want to start any kind of sales process with them at all. And that's just having a conversation, and a conversation is much, much better done on the phone. You'll also find that people, particularly at the moment, when they're at burnout, when they've got lots of stuff on, a lot of them still working remotely, they love to have a diverting conversation with someone who is able to talk to them properly on the phone about stuff that concerns them. And if you can make the conversation about them and not about you, you'll find you'll build huge rapport. And as soon as you've built rapport, they'll go, I need to know more about you. You're lovely.
That's the thing we talked about right at the start, wasn't it? It's not about you. It's about them. It's about what they need. It's so important. If you've got any more questions, guys, please pop them into the chat now. Now is your time to get those questions in, because we are almost up to an hour and we want to make sure that we're answering all of your questions. One of the things I wanted to mention tonight was the lovely Nigel Reisner, who I know is a fan of you guys, and he's just an amazing guy. If you do get a chance to Google Nigel, he's got some amazing videos out there. One of the things that stuck with me that he mentioned the other day was, it's not the best speaker that wins the gigs. It's the best marketed speaker.
Yeah, 100%. And I've worked with Nigel for years. So Nigel was my, when I had my agency in the UK, obviously when I was closer to the UK, I did a lot more work with him. I still do. I represent him for his international work, and I've booked him several times over here in Oz and elsewhere, and also virtual gigs now too. And so I've known Nigel for a long, long time. And that's why we brought him in as a guest coach in the Speaker Business Accelerator, which is one of the sessions that you saw, Lauren, that he did. And he's 100% right, that when you think about, I know some really, really damn good speakers, like absolutely amazing, naturally gifted, brilliant storytellers who just knock it out of the park, have you roll in the hours, but also teach you stuff. And they're never going to make it as a keynoter, not as a business, because they just don't know how to run a business, and they're not prepared to put the investment of time, energy, money into learning how to run a professional speaker business. Conversely, I know speakers that I could say their names, and most of you on this call would know them because they are insanely successful speakers. I would say they're 7 out of 10 probably. So fairly mediocre speakers, really, but shit, they know how to run a speaker business.
And this was a massive thing I had to learn. So I started speaking 13 years ago now, and I'd just come back from being a stand-up comic in the UK for 8 years. And I was invited to do a gig at this conference, and the conference was full of professional speakers. So it was like a room for about 200 professional speakers. And I actually got a standing ovation from my first ever keynote. And I thought to myself, this is it, I'm a speaker, fantastic. Like, here we go. And because I thought in the comedy world, there's a circuit. And if you're really good at what you do, if you're really funny, word spreads and you get lots of work. And I thought that's how to work. 4 years later, I'd done less than 10 paid gigs, and I was about 150,000 Aussie dollars in debt. And eventually a mate took me aside and said, look, Marty, you have to understand, McDonald's doesn't have the best hamburgers. McDonald's has the best sales and marketing. Like, you need to learn how to sell and market speaking. And it's exactly the same as what Nigel says. It's not enough that Michael calls it, like, speakers who are pushing passion. Like, it's not enough to be pushing passion. Like, you've got to understand your commercial value in the marketplace and talk to them about in the language they want to hear it, and they are reassured by that you can bring that value to their event.
Yeah, because honestly, 100%, you can sell them what they want and give them what they need when you get there. You know, like you have to talk their language. Otherwise, you're just never going to get picked. Speakers make themselves far too hard to buy. They really, really do. You've got to keep it simple, and actually, it makes it easier for you. It makes it easier for them.
Like a metaphor is like we use is Netflix. You know, you go onto Netflix. You know, you're sitting there with your significant other. You're feeling a bit loved up. You know, it's like oh, let's choose a movie. Like last week, we watched a rerun of Pretty Woman. Let's watch another one like that. How do you choose it? You go to romantic comedy. That's the language we use to describe the movie that we want to see. Mm-hmm. So, and then
the next step to that, really, Marty, is that before you watch the movie, there's just a little synopsis, isn't there? Tiny little. Nobody's going to just. Oh, mind you, they've got a new function. Have you noticed a new function on Netflix? Just show me something, or what is it? Just watch now, or something like that, where it picks something for you. Because you know when you end up just switching Netflix off after 15 minutes when you can't decide what to watch. But you read that tiny little bit, don't you? Or you watch the little trailer just to get an idea of what it's about before then you dive in. And that's the bit where you understand,
like that's like your one sheet and your show reel.
Yeah.
Like your trailer and the little synopsis down the bottom there. And in the trailer and the synopsis, they use language that they know the audience will understand. It's all about the audience. It's not about look at me, look at me, look at me. And speakers have to learn that same thing.
It's those hooks. That's all those things want to do. How do you build the hooks in? How can you build a hook in your content? How can you build a hook in your title? How can you build a hook in your trailer, in your show reel? Lots of people pile in far too much stuff. They pile in all of the accolades they've got all the stuff that I try to make that not Geordie. Marty takes a piss out of me.
He's accolades.
So I said accolades.
But like, how long is the average show reel on Netflix? A minute?
Yeah.
Minute and a half.
And do they put? They might say Academy nominated, but that's it, right? They don't go on about all the extra stuff. That's for later on. That's for later. We don't want to know that yet, right? What we want to know is, do I want to know more about this thing? Yeah. Do I want to see more? And that's what all this stuff's about. Getting the hooks, making another friend, Lauren, you mentioned Nigel Reisner, another friend of the program is Sam Horn from the US. Brilliant speaker and coach on getting your phrase that pays. Really coming up. She's like a machine gun. We got some hot seats coming up towards the end of the year with her as well. And she really is like a machine gun, coming up with the stuff that just makes it uniquely yours and makes it zing, makes it hang in people's heads. And that's the stuff. Nigel is known, for example, one of Nigel's key phrases that he says is absolutely amazing. And I'm going to tell you this, not so that any of you guys can copy it, because if you ever copy any other speaker's stuff, then you should go, honestly, sort yourself out. You really got to have your own stuff. But I tell you this so that you can see it as an example. Nigel will be tapped on the shoulder in airports, in libraries, in shopping centers, where people say, you're that guy. If you're in the room, be in the room, right? So he talks about how you should, whatever you're doing right there and then, you should concentrate on it. If you're in a boardroom and you need a wee, go and have a wee, because you're not concentrating on the meeting, right? That's more like, go and do what you need to do. If you're with your family, turn your phone off, right? If you're in the room, be in the room. It's his catchphrase. It's in his books. It's uniquely his. That is something people hang on and they love it. And it's something that people can walk away with.
And as Sam Horn says, it's like, when people came out of Jerry Maguire, the whole world was shouting, show me the money, show me the money. Yeah. Like, talks about having those like sort of Friday. Things.
Friday's deal close day in the Encore business.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just rambling as we can. So if you're very, very keen for you to butt in and then bring this back to the point we were trying to make, Lauren, that'd be no problem at all.
We're happy to do that. So I think there's lots of questions being asked in the chat, and a lot of them are around, okay, so what do I do now? So we have shared a huge amount today, and it's a little bit mind-blowing. So I wonder whether you guys could give us maybe one or two action steps. So if the people on the call are really interested in stepping up, and as I think Harish has said, moving from industry speaker to keynote speaker and really starting to do this right, where do they start? What's the first thing that they should be looking at doing?
Okay, possibly the first thing that I would suggest, and it's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way in the early year, is take some time to ask yourself and to commit to, I'm going to learn how the speaker business works and how the speaker industry works, how the industry works, who hires people on the keynote stage, how do events work, and then invest some time, energy, and money into saying, I'm going to commit to learn how to do that, because that is the most crucial step for me. Like, because I had to learn that. I found that really hard. I didn't even know where to look. That's where the partnership between Michael and I came together for the Mainstage thing. Just like I was talking to him about my first 4 years, which were just horrendous, because I knew once I got on the stage, I was really, really good. You know, I'd been treading the boards for 10 years as a stand-up comic, 2 in Australia, 8 in the UK. You know, and I knew what I had to offer was great, but I just didn't know how to tell other people about that.
And you know, I've been working with speakers for a lot of time, not just as an agent, but before that as a corporate event organizer. And so I know what works in the speaking industry. I know what the common things are. And so for someone like me, it's just something I use every day. But when you're a consultant, a trainer, a coach, even a conference and speaker or an industry speaker, you've got to realize that the people that you're selling to as a keynote speaker, they're a completely different audience. They're a different set of clients. And so you've got to learn, as Marty said, you've got to learn what those clients are, how they tick and what they want, because you've got to satisfy their needs before you start selling, you know, what you're going to provide to their audience, because that's a secondary thing.
Yeah.
That's a really great point. Maybe we can give you a little bonus, like a third thing to understand that, you know, most speakers try to target their marketing at the people who'll be sitting in the audience rather than the person who signs off on your fee. And they're two very different people with two very different ideas of what they're looking for in a speaker. So do you understand what I mean? Like, they're putting on an event, they want a keynote speaker to come on first and knock it out of the park. They have a different agenda to, like, you know, they've said to themselves, like, I got a certain amount of problems in my business. I need to hire someone who's also really entertaining and motivating and a great speaker to help me fix those problems. That's very different to, you know, I help people discover their true worth, or discover the truest impression of themselves. Like, because that's talking about the person in the audience rather than the person who has hired is going to hire you and sign off on you.
What's the value of that to that business if those people in the audience do the thing or realize the thing that you're teaching them?
Yeah, absolutely. So important. What a great bit of gold, guys. So if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat. But I have already put, and I'll put it again, the link to the Speaker Green Room, which is the Facebook group that Michael and Marty have. They share lots more gold in that group. It's a fun group to be in. There's people from all over the world. So the link is in the chat, and I'll send it out with the recording as well. Now, Michael and Marty have a program, which they've mentioned a couple of times tonight. As we said at the start, this isn't a big sell. It's just letting you know, because a lot of people are asking, who can help us with this? Thanks, Leanne. Leanne, who can help us with this? Well, by the way, Michael and Marty have an amazing program. It's their signature training program. I've been on it with the lovely Lisa, who was here a minute ago, and there's lots of the Audacious Agency clients who are also jumping into that program. It's extraordinary. I've never experienced anything like it before in terms of speaker business training. Which is exactly what Marty has just said. If you know you are good on stage, if you know that you just want to make more of an impact, you want to grow that influence, and you deserve to be on those stages, you need to understand the business of it. You need to get into the back end and work out how it all works so that you can position yourself properly. They have a couple of spots, I think 2 spots available on the next.
Currently 2, yep.
When does it start, guys, and what does it involve?
The next one starts on the 2nd of June. So the signature program is the Accelerator. It's a 9-week program that's spread over 11 weeks. So there's 2 break weeks in between, essentially. We go through the 9 different stages to build your business, from the first part, looking at the product and you as a product, looking at all of your stuff, what the marketplace wants, and coming up with what your stuff is really going to be, what your speaker IP going to be for the next 10 years as a keynote. Then we move into how do you articulate that to the marketplace with all of your stuff, like show reels, like videos, like, because everyone talks about the show reel. There are 9 different types of video that we actually take you through. All of your materials that you need as a speaker, all of your one sheet, your bios, your speaker brochures, but critically, not just what goes in them, where do you use them in the sales process? So if someone says, send me your stuff, what do you do with that? Right. So like, what are they really asking?
And that can be terrifying. You know, I think it was Leanne mentioned before, should you reach out on, personal message on LinkedIn or a phone call? What if they say, can you send me your stuff? You're like Homer Simpson when he freaks out.
And then the final bit is it's the delivery and the running of that business, So of the value, what are you going to be delivering on stage? How do you deliver so that you're going to get rebooked from the stage? And crucially, at the end of the day, where do you get the gigs from? How do you start prospecting and how do you sell? And I've got a 5-step method that I use in the way that I sell. I've got over an 80% closure rate on any leads that I get in from speakers. And I teach everybody that. So it's
without blowing too much smoke up Michael's ass. When I first, before I started working with him, I closed 38% of my inquiries, and I thought that was pretty good. I heard from a couple of US speakers who were 33 and 32, and he closes 83% of my inquiries. So he does all right. He knows what he's on about.
And so that's the signature program. It starts on the 2nd of June. It's live by Marty and I in this very room, and we take you through. It's a small cohort, so you get that. We're really, really passionate about the fact that it is a coaching process, not a training process. The way that you deliver it for your business will be completely different from what you want to achieve with your business, what your aims and objectives are, who your target clients are, what your value is, and all that sort of thing. But the principles of what you need to put together are the same. We guarantee that if you come off the end of that program, you will know exactly what you need to implement to get your business where you want it to be, 100%. In fact, so much so that if you don't get your course feedback in speaking gigs within 6 months of implementing everything from the finish of the program, you can have your course feedback. And in over 2.5 years of running it, nobody's ever even asked.
So that's it's an offer to have a chat with us. Come into the green room.
Yeah, of course. Green room first of all, freebie. Get in there, get yourself.
Check us out. Do the sneaky Google and check us out. It's absolutely no pressure whatsoever. If you want to chat, we're happy to have a chat and do a bit of a triage and work out where your speaker business is at. And if we wouldn't be right for you, we will tell you. We'll say, like, you know what, you need to go away and do X, Y, Z.
We don't ask anybody we don't allow anybody onto the program that we don't think is going to help, because we don't want anybody to be asking for their money afterwards. And there's lots of that as well. Sometimes it's just not a right fit, and that's fine. But we do know between us lots of other people that we can signpost you to if you're looking for something different, or if it's not a correct fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can guarantee that these guys are probably, they are the most genuine mentors in terms of speaking businesses that I have ever met. And I've worked with some
very nice
people over the years, so extraordinary.
And can we mention that it's a double international award-winning program?
Now, hold your horses. There's another one coming up. The IBAs aren't far off closing. There might be more awards. But yeah, absolutely. They've now won awards for their processes. I wonder who they got to do those. The most interesting thing, guys, is that we've partnered with Michael and Marty and Mainstage, and we're going to continue working with them over the years, because we see speaking as a big part of growing your personal brand and growing your profile, along with your books and your coaching and your business and everything else you want to do. So it is work. I think that's number one thing that Michael and Marty would absolutely back me up on. If you do this program, it's work. You're expected to work. It's not doing it for you, it's mentoring you through the process.
We say it's like a gym membership where we're your personal trainer who takes you into the gym and says, here's the machines you need to do 3 sets of 20 on this, 3 sets of 20 on this, Monday, Thursday, Friday, 3 sets of 20 on there. Like, we run you through the whole program.
Stop eating Mars bars.
But you've got to do the reps. You've got to
There's
do
lots
the
of
reps.
Mars, but there's shiny stuff. I was just talking to someone the industry. I'm such a gullible for shiny stuff. It's like, oh, that'll get me gigs, and go after. It's like, stop it. Stop it.
Totally, absolutely no problem. People have asked the fee. Like, it's $10,000. The moment of this recording in May 2021. The course fee is $10,000, or you get a bit of a 10% off if you pay up front. Will you be running the course again during the years? Yes, there'll be another intake in September and probably one in December as well. So awesome. No problem. But, honestly, we're decent guys. To reach out for a chat, we're really happy to have a chat and see if it's right for you.
Definitely.
And we part as friends if you end up not wanting to work with us. It's absolutely no problem at all.
And in terms of investment, I mean, it's $10,000. We think anyone coming off the back of the program should be getting about that for a single keynote talk. So it's not about the money. It really is about you being prepared to put the investment in yourself. You've got to be ready headspace wise, and you've got to be ready to put the investment in terms of time to implement this stuff. Because if you don't use it, it ain't going to work for you.
Because at times it's a bit of a brain ache, isn't it, Lauren?
Oh yes, and it's interesting, isn't it? From a personal branding specialist, I was going around in some big circles for a long time. So it was awesome to get the clarity with Michael and Marty, and when we nailed it, absolutely nailed it, and everything has aligned itself beautifully. But I think the ideal client for these courses is someone who has been speaking, they've been growing their brand, and you are getting so frustrated that you want to get there. I think one of the things, Michael, that you said to me only a couple of weeks ago was it takes most speakers 10 years to figure this out. 10 years, it's too long. So if you want to do it faster than that, if you want to really learn this business and do it, the signature program they have is absolutely full on, but it gives you everything that you need. It gives you all of the process, all the steps for you to implement. And it might take you another, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah, I always say, Lauren, the typical average is for you to be implementing it over a 6-month period, which is why we've put the 6 month on. Like, if you want to get your pipeline going quicker than that, of course you can. You know, you can start your pipeline at the same time as you. You don't have to get. We hate it when people go, everything's got to be perfect before I launch. You know, like nothing's ever going to be perfect. So there is stuff you can do in the meantime. But yeah, to be like done, if you like, it's going to take a good 6 months. Like, you know, this can be, you know, the best career that you can possibly have. You can earn a significant amount of money and change,
best job in the world.
and you can, apart from being an agent, and you can change people's lives genuinely. You know, those when I see people come up to the likes of Marty and others, sometimes Marty, but definitely others, you know, and they shake their hand after the gig and say, when you said that, it just really struck me.
Yeah.
And
I was talking to an old comedy buddy today who's now become a keynote speaker as well. And I was saying, like, you know, when I was a stand-up, probably once, maybe twice a year, I'd have someone come up to me after a gig, just throw their arms around me, totally invade my personal space, and just say, my life is in the absolute freaking toilet. Thank you so much. I so needed that tonight. And like now, I'll probably, you know, pre-COVID when we're actually in the same room, like I get that once a month. And it's just lovely. And you make a great quid out of it as well. You know, it's just a wonderful, wonderful career that you really, as Michael says, it is so worth investing the time and energy into your business to get it going.
One thing I would say to everyone here, and regardless of our program, if this is something that you really want to do, don't leave it too late to really do something about it. Whether it's with us or whether it's with someone else, I hate to see it. Like the record for us is someone that joined the program. She'd been speaking for 34 years and still hadn't made it, you know, and it's just such a sad position to be in when they could have been having, you know, their career could have been based on it, and they could have had such huge success, not just financially, but also in the milestones. Whenever I take a speaker on, I always ask them what they want to achieve, you know, in terms of, yes, money and stuff like that. But what would be the one gig? If I could get them that gig, what would it be? You know, what are these things? Like, you know, I've got a particular client who they fly speakers out to Fiji. They stay in the 5-star Shangri-La with their partner, business class. They stay out there for 5 nights. They have dinner with the president of Fiji the night before the gig. They take you around scuba diving and all of this stuff. They treat you like a VIP, and they pay about $15,000 for a keynoter as well. It's like, how awesome is that? You know,
I met the president of Fiji. Yeah, he was awesome.
So yeah,
brilliant. I love it. Look, thank you so much, guys. We've had lots of feedback in the chat box. People saying thank you so much for all of the information.
It's been fun. It's been fun, people. Let's do it again. Michelle. Yeah, let's do it again.
Jumping into the speaker green room as well, which is awesome. Tracy said she's in. Leanne had to go, but she said she's so interested as well. Sheena's there. Michelle speaks in. Lauren, yeah, absolutely. Next on a call.
There's loads of free resources in the green room, but you know, if you're not quite ready for having a chat with us, like there's loads of free stuff in the speaker green room. So dive in there and have a poke around.
The speaker one sheet that you've got in there is fantastic, and there's lots of the speakers who jump in there, the likes of Nigel Reisner, and you know, they jump in there and offer all sorts of stuff as well, which is really great. So so fantastic, thank you. So again, guys, I'll put that link in the chat. There it is. There's the speaker green room. Go and jump in there. Hook up with Michael and Marty, have a chat to them. There's nothing stopping you from giving them a call and having a chat at where you're at. And more importantly, use what you've learned tonight.
Yeah, great to see you all. Hope to see you again another time soon. Thank you, Kim, for being my guinea pig. I kept on coming back to as an example. And all the very best of success to you all.
Yeah, one way or another, all the best.
Brilliant. Cheers, guys. Have a great evening.
You too.